bring up the next topic for us, just very spontaneously, around developing people, developing employees. How has this changed in the past 15 odd years, do you think? The requirements and the way we develop?
Well, it has changed in terms of we had a lot of face-to-face development. People learn from actually being in the workplace, overhearing how their managers and supervisors deal with things and how their colleagues interact, and they learn from each other. And that element has kind of been taken away. It's become online. But obviously, there's still a need for blended learning approach. Absolutely. People have got to have that face-to-face, see body language, see tone. Hear tone and see body language. So that is exceptionally important. I think where development in the past, it's been a one shoe fits all approach, like, oh, we need conflict handling. Let's just bring it into our organization and nail it with everybody. And now it should be a more tailored approach. So, and again, if you've got your proper workflows and processes in place, you've decided what skills you need to execute, then you look at those skills. So perhaps someone who's highly operational or highly administrational might need an advanced Excel training course. Give them that skill. Make sure they are able to practice. That's where your coaching and mentoring come in. And that's a big gap in development, which has to be looked at. It's the gap in development, is for managers to create and supervisors to create the workplace space for that person to practice their new skill and to become good at it. Because what did Gary Player said? When you practice, you really become good at something.
Yes. So I think he said, the more I practice, the luckier I become, or something.
That's right. Yes,
that's it. I think that's what he said, yeah.
We need a whole lot of lucky people in the workplace to perform. So, make sure to identify what the skills are. And that also comes in good job profiling and job profiling that's updated regularly. Determine what the skills are for the current job. Also determine what the skills are for future roles. And that becomes your talent pool. And then you're developing your talent pool. So top performing, high performing individuals should be in a talent pool. And then money and development should be given to those to stretch them further, because they will need to accomplish more because they're high performers. So stretch them and then tailor make the development. So you shouldn't just be sitting in an office and saying, oh, the whole organization needs this. No, it's really customized. It should be customized, and it should fit in terms of what the organization wants now and where they need, even with leadership, their leaders to be, and then work on it now, because you're not going to grow leaders overnight. It's a conscious effort, and it's a conscious set of tools that you need to give your leaders and managers to be effective at the end of the day.
So what I really like about what I'm hearing is we're talking about development and developing our talent pool. But you also, at the very beginning, you said, let's develop our managers. Because I think one of the things that I see is that a couple of managers get put through a very expensive, high-flying, university degree that I'm not saying doesn't have any value, but, there's so many assignments, there's so many books to read that it actually just adds so much pressure that it actually isn't an enjoyable and a really experience of growth. It's just about, let me get through this. But on the other hand, we also see that we have first-line managers who have never led anyone, who also don't get any attention. They get no training whatsoever. Do you think that there is that gap?
There's a massive gap there. And I've worked in many different organizations where I've seen it. And that's why I'm passionate about learning and development, because it goes hand in hand with human resources. Because you're the best one to see the skills shortage or the skills gap and be able to start plugging it. but you've got to have leadership buy-in with that. And they've got to understand that to actually manage people is a whole different ball game. And I've actually been in situations, being an HR practitioner, where I've had to handhold new managers. But they've had the luxury of having me handhold them. And not every organization gives effort to that. So it is important, but it again goes back to what do you want them to know? I mean, first, basic things, how do you performance manage? Teach them, give them the skills of performance discussions, performance management, dealing with conflict. And what I did in my previous company is arrange some training sessions with team leaders, people who became team leaders, because now it's their first step to actually guiding and managing others, and put a little portfolio together of what is important in terms of behavioral. So the very important thing here is that people are technical, but the minute they move into a managerial role, it becomes way more behavioral. Your behavioral skills are more important than your technical skills, because now you are getting work done through others. And that's the massive gap. So you have to plug that gap with a whole lot of behavioral interventions so that they can have the confidence as well. Then you will give them the training, but you'll also do some job shadowing. So put them in a session with another manager and see how he or she conducts an appraisal, for example.
Yes.
It's a blended learning approach. And then it's practicing, hand-holding until they have the confidence to do it. And when they see that those behavioral skills are helping them in managing others, then the confidence grows and they become really good managers and leaders. And they actually start to enjoy it. So you're right, it's a massive gap, and it takes a lot of time and development. And you've got to identify what skills you want them to have, the basic managerial skills, obviously. Some of them also don't even know the difference between what is a manager, what is a leader. So you need to give them some basic training on your management function. You're doing really good. You can plan, you can execute, you can evaluate a process, you can give feedback. However, your communication, your influence, filtering of information, you're managing a meeting, conflict handling, and all, to name just a few, emotional intelligence will now become more prevalent in the way you deal with others.
Absolutely. Sorry.
Top performers all love, I've spoken to a lot of people who are top performers, they all love the person they work for. They will do anything for the person they work for. Doesn't that speak volumes? You talk about performance. So when you're training and grooming managers, they start to feel connected and valued and respected. And that's how they treat their employees. And you start to have a culture of learning, growing, adaptability.
Do you think, you're touching on a great point there about people loving their managers, but do you think that when we develop individuals, if I as a manager develop my team and I develop them beyond skills, as you say, emotional intelligence type content, do you think they feel more appreciated as a human instead of just the cog in the wheel?
Absolutely. A well-functioning organization is one where they can balance the task with the people. And I say people first and then work. So even when you're engaging, like ask someone how they're doing, even giving feedback to an employee. Always start with what they're doing well and then move into the areas of development and then offer the support and guidance and assistance. A lot of managers don't even have that basic step. They don't know it and no one's taught it to them. Maybe they weren't managed in that way previously.
Yes.
So the habits are filtered down and you need to break that and get them to add value. And I've also conducted a lot of exit interviews in terms of people leaving an organization, and mainly it's they didn't fit into their team, or it's mainly to do with I wasn't managed properly, I wasn't managed fairly, I wasn't managed at all.
Oh, that's a scary one, yes. But it's really interesting. I mean, there's this Gallup research that also says that managers can influence their team's engagement with up to 40%. That is huge. Yeah. But you're right. And really, I look at it from the advantage of myself also having many years in decades of experience. If I think how we were managed in the beginning versus how we manage now, there's a huge shift. And that shift is beautiful, because previously it was like, well, I just hired you, you're the youngest consultant, so you get to do that job. Whether you were interested, whether you had the skills, it was entirely beside the point. It was just, well, I pay you to do a job, knuckle down and do it, and then be very glad that I pay you a salary for it. So I hear what you're saying. But I mean, this has been such an incredible chat, but I want to come back to, what do we do with remote work? So many people are finding it difficult to manage remote working. What are your thoughts?
So you have to, and for management, it's clearly also a lack of control. They're not watching people. Yes. So it's definitely, I'm going to go back to focus on the employee contribution.
Yes.
And not performance.
Yes.
Balance outcomes and behaviors when assessing. So start to bring in the behaviors, because that's very important with remote working as well. And design roles and structures around outcomes to increase agility and flexibility. So have that agility and flexibility. And look at your critical skills. Focus more on the workflows and less on the roles. Be deliberate when you approach people. Not work first and people second, but people first, work second. So when you're engaging with them, how are you doing today? How are you managing your time at home? Very, very important. Engage in task workers and create a culture of inclusiveness in the team. So get the team to call each other, to have little coffee chats like we're doing now with each other.
Yes.
Organize a team coffee chat, but not with a whole team. Individuals getting to know individuals. So create that sense of belonging. Definitely coaching and mentoring is key going forward. Teach your managers how to coach, and, obviously more seniors in the organization, get them to mentor, and even, phone an individual and an employee and ask them how their day is going, and ask them how they're managing their time. And I've seen a lot of people work a lot of companies have taken their whole business online and been highly successful. In fact, you have less time in traffic to be more productive. Bringing in assessment tool or monitoring and measuring tools, I'm not completely happy with that. I believe focus on employee engagement and well-being, and you'll increase the productivity that way. Because you do need to become more flexible, and organizations that aren't flexible, who are strictly saying you have to be online between that time and that time, are focusing on the wrong things. They're not focusing on the outcomes. And I go back to focusing on the outcomes. Define the outcomes properly. Make sure they're clearly communicated, and have chats, more chats than you would if you got everyone in the office, because you can gauge body language and you can see if someone's got something they want to say or they're upset, but you can't at home. So you have to open up that forum for more chats. So I think that's very important going forward.
So thank you. That was such a bunch of helpful information for anyone. I mean, anyone listening to this interview can almost take it as a mini masterclass already. But I want to ask you, what do we do in remote work, and how do we deal with this thing that different people have different circumstances? So, you might have one person working from home who has a family. You have one person working from home who doesn't have a family. You've got someone working from home who might be working in a place where they can only have 3G. They can't have Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi, my sausage. They can't have fiber. Aren't we creating an unfair situation? How do we deal with that?
It's only unfair if it seemed to be unfair. So it's got to be managed very carefully. But obviously, like any contractual relationship, you are saying to a company, I'm contracted to give so many hours, and then I'll get my salary, and there's my outcomes defined for me. So you need to, as an employee who's remote working, you also need to make sure you deliver on that. And, you can't be using time to, do other things. And you have to make a plan, obviously, like you would if you're going into the office to make a plan for your children, you would also have to make a plan because you have contractually said, I will work for so many hours. I think where it can become flexible, obviously, I think that's up to each individual manager to understand people's circumstances and allow a bit of flexibility, but not to the point where you're creating inequities.
Yes.
That's not fair either. People need to feel that they've all been treated the same and they're not being treated any differently because their family situation is different.
So what I really love there is that you from what you're saying, I'm feeling like maybe we can even out some of the inequalities in our society with remote work because it's delivery driven. It's not about what you have, who you are, where you live, who you know. It's about, can you work off site? Because we also know work from home is a little bit of a misnomer. I've spent more time working from coffee shops, working from home, because my home has 2 delinquent dogs who will drive me batty if I had to sit with them every day. So when we are working off site, it's about the delivery. It's not about where you're working and that kind of stuff. As long as you can comply. And I like what you say. Contractually, you've agreed this. As long as you can do what you promised to do, the way you do it is up to you.
As long as the output is there. Obviously, if the output is not there, then it goes into a whole another process. But again, people working from home, some of them also overdo it. They don't take breaks. They don't take lunch times. They don't. Very important. You have to educate the workplace, the staff, the employees, that there's a balance of physical that leads to mental. So you educate them and you tell them, this is exceptionally important to be able to take your tea breaks like you would in the office environment. Take a walk around your garden with your cup of tea, very, very important, because then you're going to get meeting fatigue. And when people are scheduling putting things in your diary, just make sure you have enough time between meetings to recoup, do what you need to do, water, fresh air, and so it's vastly about time management, so to speak. And I hate the word time management, but it really is about managing one's own schedule to accommodate what you have to deliver, but also give yourself time to regroup, or and you don't get fatigue or computer fatigue, and that's very important. So it goes both ways,
I suppose that's maybe a little bit of a legacy issue, and that's certainly something that it took me forever to learn, is that it is not a sin to take your lunch break when you're at the office. And then when you work from home, even more so, because you're like, well, they can't see me work, I've got to prove. Actually, no. If the deliverable is done, it's done. There's no having to worry about, I have to prove myself so much more. I suppose at the beginning of every career, one does do it. But there is a point where we must understand where that could lead to burnout.
Yeah, it can. And so it's a balance. And it's also, again, training that management supervisor level to engage in discussions, to find out who's battling with what, to see where the assistance may be. I mean, I've been in Australia for 2 weeks now, and I've got a sister here up the road as well. And she said to me, I'm going on a 4-day week. I said, what? You're lucky. She said, no, this is the way I want to structure it. So employers here are really allowing that flexibility. I will do what I need to do between a Monday and Thursday, and a Friday is me to have a proper weekend.
Yes.
And they're actually allowing it. There's more flexibility coming in and obviously because she's managing herself from home remotely, and she's created that trust. Okay, so the trust goes both ways. Remember, I said trust is very important. It goes from between employer to employee and employee to employer as well. It goes both ways. But if an employee knows they're getting the support, professional guidance, coaching, mentoring, everything they need to deliver on their outputs, recognition along the way, feeling like they're achieving their goals, because that's what the goals should be, short-term, not long-term. Having all of that in place, then there's no reason why they wouldn't want to perform. And sometimes there might be a report due that you need to work late. Then you just pop an email to your manager. I've had to work till 10 p.m. However, I would like 2 hours off to go and do something personal. In fact, my daughter's company have given the employees a mental well-being day as well, where they can take half a day, don't have to put in leave, just to regroup, just go and have a massage or do whatever they need. So the companies who are flexible, progressive, and worried more about outputs than performance are actually coming through this COVID pandemic globally very, very well. And it's nice because I've had a chance to compare South Africa now with Australia, because I'm sitting in Australia. And it's nice to see the different initiatives that employers are bringing in to support remote working. So I think it's great.
Wonderful. So I have a last question. Sorry, I know we're running over time a little bit, but I do have just one last question. What we're seeing right now is so much, and I know we used to blame the millennials, shame they've grown up, so now we need to blame someone else. But people would come into work and say, from day one, I want to work remotely. So for me, as an employee or as an employer or as a manager, that would go, but hold on, I don't know you and you don't know us. We first have to get to know the culture, how we work, that kind of thing. What is it that we can do to build that trust so that we could meet them halfway, but at the same time, not put our businesses at risk?
Sure. And that's a very good question. So it is important to have some face time. And I think the way they might want to work remotely, but when an employee is newly engaged in a company, there will be a certain amount of face-to-face they're going to need to do. Obviously in a safe, following all the protocol environment. But it's important because that's where their learning will come. And then obviously set up sessions. I think it must be very clear in the interview process whether the company is going to be on a rotation or working remotely, and then that candidate should be allowed to choose. This is not for me because I want to work remotely, then go somewhere else. Because those standards need to be set up front before the employee actually joins the company. Or this is not a remote working company. We expect you to be in the office. And obviously, it's very difficult now because a lot of companies are still not having people back in the office. I mean, COVID is still around. But who knows where it's going to go to? I think a lot of companies have now seen that it can be quite a cost saving with people working remotely. And they're still engaging and doing things to engage. And I think that's the most important thing, is how you manage it. But certainly, if you're a company that doesn't want to have remote working, that needs to be cleared up in the interview process before the person actually joins the company. And then if they're saying, what you need to tell them is you have a period of orientation or induction with the company, which is highly important for your success as well as ours.
Yes.
And it's a learning opportunity for you.
Yes.
Then a person wants to learn. A person naturally wants to succeed. A person wants guidance and support. A person wants feedback. All those human behaviors, as I said, the psychology in business.
Yes.
Tap into that and you'll still keep the dude motivated. And he'll want to come into the office because you'll see it's quite fun and he can engage.
Yes.
I know some people here working remotely, but they're still going in to engage with clients and having face-to-face, which is also important. So, but I think any company, it needs to manage things properly and focus on productivity and outcomes rather than the old traditional way of performance.
Yeah, like bums in seats kind of management, as we used to say.
Yes, I know.
Oh, Dee, thank you so much. It was wonderful. The hour flew past way too fast. I'm sure you and I could have 15 more of these. Thank you for sharing and thank you for helping us.
I could talk about this subject forever.
I hear you.
I wrote a lot of notes and didn't touch on a quarter of it.
Wonderful. Write a book, Dee. Wonderful. Well, we look forward to seeing where else we connect with you. Thank you so much for your time. It is really appreciated. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Innocent. Take care. We'll definitely see you soon.
Thank you. Wonderful. Yes. Thanks. Bye.
Bye then.
So yet again, what a wonderful session we've had. It's so interesting. It's 2 years. We're still looking at remote work. A performance is still, something that is deep in the heart of everyone, even if we've had to make major shifts to where we are and how this works for us. And so I hope that you enjoyed our interview with Deirdre Viljoen as much as I did. What a font of wisdom and knowledge. And yes, I can't wait for her to get back from Australia so we can have a real coffee instead of a virtual one. So as always, it was lovely having you here with us, and I look forward to seeing you again. So Dee will be on for the next 2 weeks as our coffee companion. I will see you with the perspectives. If you're joining us from LinkedIn, if you could just click on subscribe down here in the bottom, not on the video, but on the page itself. And also click on the notification bell so that we can let you know when next we have a video ready for you. And about 2 a week, so it's worth keeping up with. And if you're joining us from Facebook or LinkedIn, it's lovely to see you here again. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and please give us some comments, give us some feedback, and share this so that everyone can get to hear the wisdom that Dee has shared with us today. And then until next week, I look forward to seeing you at the Performance Cafe.